For hundreds of years, humanity has been trapped by the limits of energy, fighting endless wars over oil, building nations on coal, and racing to control every natural resource it could find. But what if the answer to this long struggle was always close at hand, hidden in plain sight since the 19th century? The concept of Maxwell's free energy is not a new dream, but an echo of a question that science has never completely silenced. Can human beings unlock endless power without destroying themselves along the way? The story starts with a small imaginary being called Maxwell's demon, James Clerk. Maxwell, one of the greatest minds in physics, pictured a thought experiment where a demon could sort fast-moving particles from slow-moving ones inside a closed box. By dividing them, the demon would create a difference in temperature that could, in theory, be turned into usable energy without expending its own effort. For most scientists, this idea looked like an impossible breaking of the sacred second law of thermodynamics. That law says energy always spreads out and disorder always grows. Yet Maxwell's playful idea stayed alive for more than a century, living in the imagination of inventors, dreamers, and visionaries, whispering of a secret door to abundance. If Maxwell's discovery turned out to be true, the world would change drastically. Imagine the possibilities if we didn't have to worry about fuel costs or energy production anymore. The entire global economy would be turned upside down. But let's take a step back and explore what this discovery actually means. Now let's go back to the story. The story starts with a small imaginary being called Maxwell's demon, James Clerk. Maxwell, one of the greatest minds in physics, pictured a thought experiment where a demon could sort fast-moving particles from slow-moving ones inside a closed box. By dividing them, the demon would create a difference in temperature that could, in theory, be turned into usable energy without expending its own effort. For most scientists, this idea looked like an impossible breaking of the sacred second law of thermodynamics. That law says energy always spreads out, and disorder always grows. Yet Maxwell's playful idea stayed alive for more than a century, living in the imagination of inventors, dreamers, and visionaries, whispering of a secret door to abundance. The question of free energy, if it were real, would not only break the rules of physics, it would also shatter the foundations of society. Across history, countless tinkerers and so-called inventors claimed they had solved the puzzle, though many were mocked as frauds or eccentrics. Still, the temptation of endless energy never went away. At its heart, it is not just a scientific riddle, but a deep human longing. Energy means strength, and strength means freedom. Imagine no longer depending on oil, coal, sun, or wind. Imagine lighting up whole towns, running factories, or even launching spacecraft without a single thought about fuel. That is why Maxwell's idea continues to feel like a test, perhaps the greatest test of our species' maturity. But what if science today is closer to this vision than we realize? In the 20th and 21st centuries, researchers began to look at Maxwell's demon in a new light, not as an actual creature, but as a symbol of information. After all, information itself has energy. The act of observing, recording, and controlling particles comes at a cost. It requires memory, logic, and computation. This insight connected Maxwell's demon to the young field of information theory, opening doors nobody expected. The so-called Brownian ratchet, a tiny imaginary machine that tries to harvest energy from random motion, hinted at the same puzzle. Quantum dots, extremely small particles that can trap and control electrons, began showing behaviors that blurred the line between what is possible and what is forbidden. Even in the chaotic dance of tiny particles, scientists discovered patterns where knowledge could be swapped for usable energy. It wasn't about breaking thermodynamics. It was about reframing the rules in terms of understanding and control. If you know enough about a system, you can carve out order from chaos. This is the modern whisper of progress, the sense that the dream of free energy may return, not as fantasy, but as actual science. The demon, it seems, was never a monster at all, but a symbol of how humanity could one day treat information itself as fuel. If these concepts escape the lab and enter reality, the world could be transformed overnight. Imagine a society where energy is not scarce but limitless, where every gadget, machine, and vehicle draws power directly from the fabric of reality itself. Cities would shine without fear of blackouts. Industries would expand without smoke or waste. Families would never face the cruelty of darkness. The poorest villages on Earth could live with the same comfort as the wealthiest capitals. Water shortages could vanish as powerful desalination plants turn oceans into fountains of drinking water for all. Farms could bloom in deserts, supported by systems that never run out of energy. Space exploration would no longer be bound by fuel tanks, opening the path to Mars, Jupiter's moons, and perhaps even beyond. Humanity could step into a golden age where creativity and invention are no longer chained by the price of energy. This dream is almost utopian, an image where humanity finally defeats scarcity. Yet every great promise carries its shadow, and abundance can be just as dangerous as it is liberating. If free energy became real tomorrow, how would humanity react? Entire industries built on oil, coal, gas, and even renewable power would collapse within days. Millions of jobs linked to mining, drilling, refining, and transport would disappear, leaving communities devastated. Nations whose wealth comes from oil and gas exports could face instant financial ruin, sparking political chaos. The global balance of power, tied for centuries to resources, would splinter into something unknown. Would the first discoverers share this gift openly, or would they guard it like the ultimate weapon? If energy becomes infinite, so does the ability to create, and also the ability to destroy. A machine that produces free energy could just as easily power hospitals as fuel unstoppable weapons. The moral questions would be unlike anything humanity has ever seen. Would corporations attempt to monopolize the technology, turning boundless energy into another tool of control? Would governments restrict access out of fear, creating black markets for devices that could change the world? Would individuals find ways to weaponize it in ways too terrible to imagine? And perhaps most frightening of all, would our society, unprepared for abundance, collapse under the weight of its own excess? History warns us that plenty does not always bring peace. It often leads to greed, rivalry, and violence. The true question is not whether Maxwell's free energy can exist, but whether humanity can be trusted with it. This is why it is often seen not as a breakthrough in physics, but as a test for civilization itself. We are standing where science, ethics, and society all meet. If we succeed, the future could outshine anything our ancestors dreamed. If we fail, the same discovery could unravel the fabric of our world. Perhaps this is why the demon still haunts our thoughts. It represents not just bending the rules of physics, but bending the rules of morality. Can we trust ourselves with limitless power? Can we create systems of fairness and cooperation in a world where scarcity no longer restrains us? Or will greed and inequality twist what could be humanity's greatest triumph? The possibility of free energy raises profound questions about our world, our values, and our future. As we stand on the brink of a new era, let us remember that the pursuit of knowledge and progress should serve not just our ambition, but our wisdom, compassion, and unity. Let us ensure that the gifts of science enrich and empower all humankind, fostering a world where energy, information, and enlightenment illuminate the path toward a brighter shared future for all. Now let's get back to the video. So what happens if the whispers turn real? What if tomorrow someone reveals a device that truly produces endless power without fuel? Do we celebrate or do we panic? Do we unite to make sure it benefits all, or do we split apart in fear and greed? These questions cannot be answered by physics alone. They demand philosophy, ethics, politics, and above all, humanity. The truth is, Maxwell's free energy might never be possible. but the mere possibility forces us to think about the choices it would demand. If abundance arrives, it will not wait for us to grow wiser. It will test us instantly. It will remove every excuse we use to justify inequality and conflict. It will leave only one challenge. How do we manage endless power? Thank you for watching. Don't forget to share your ideas in the comments. See you in the next video.